But the plan is to construct warehouse wholesale distribution facilities of more than 1.2 million square feet. 1.2 million square feet. I think that's the size of the Palisades Center, if I'm not mistaken. It's a lot. It's really, really big. It's a lot of warehousing. Mm-hmm. Now, the interesting thing there, and I don't have the nitty-gritty details right now, but in June, the Suffern Planning Board did issue what's called a positive secra dec, or declaration, mm-hmm. meaning that rather than this application just sailing forward through its planning board, there is going to be a intensive study of the potential adverse impacts of the proposed 1.2 million square feet of distribution warehousing. Mm-hmm. And that's interesting, too, because, again, just a sidebar here is that Rockland is 30% green, feels very suburban. We see the corridors that appear to be commercial, but the truth is that Rockland has a deep industrial history, and some of that industry, has impacted the environment. Mm-hmm. So, to a case in point, very much a case in point, which ties together the issues that we're talking about right now, is the story that we just published this morning, mm-hmm. and that is about the proposal. There's a proposal to clean up and build warehousing mm-hmm. In the village of West Haverstraw, right, basically abutting Peck's Pond and near the Rockland Green transfer station. It also happens to be right across the street from where Howard Phillips and Rockland Green are hoping to take to purchase another warehouse that was built on spec and to turn that potentially into an animal shelter. But that conversation is for another day. Mm-hmm. This piece of land is a giant piece of land. It's 34 acres, and for decades was used as a construction and debris landfill. Mm-hmm. And it is listed on the DEC as a site that needs to be cleaned up and remediated before this. The team of developers is Eric Bergstol. Some out there in Rockland County know him better for his golf development, and a New Jersey developer, Ephraim Gersberg. So the pair are hoping to put a 450,000 square foot warehouse distribution center on that site. Mm-hmm. But again, they first have to undertake a rather extensive cleanup that will require them to cap the land because of dumping that went on for decades. And they also have to establish whether or not the groundwater has been impacted. So that proposal is out there. That is active. They went to the planning board the week before last, and essentially they're dealing with the state right now before they can move forward with their application. But in fact, they are moving forward. Mm-hmm.
Now, the cost for that, if the groundwater was impacted, would obviously go up, I imagine, in terms of the cost of repair to the site before they build on it. Would would it be possible that the cost would be something out of their ballpark and they drop out, or are they intent on, no matter what the cost of cleaning up the site is, they're still going to go through with it?
Well, I think that's a really good question, and I think it points to what are the economic conditions at the moment. So like we said, interest rates keep rising. This makes there's a more pent-up desire for development. There seems to be an insatiable belief or insatiable, need for warehousing and distribution centers as we continue to be an economy that's based on give it to me right now delivery. I'm sure that they have done some number crunching. I know that Bergstall owns the property. He and his family have owned the property for decades, but he is partnering with a very, very deep-pocketed New Jersey developer who has or is in the process of developing something like 7 million square feet of warehousing in the region. So have they crunched their numbers yet? I would assume that they have done preliminary number crunching. They understand that an environmental cleanup, costs money. But then also there are typically credits, brownfield credits, also that sometimes mitigate these costs.
Okay. Well, yeah, there's a little more incentive there, and that could certainly help. So it would keep them attached to the project, as in case that was a concern of theirs. So certainly, Tina, we do have a caller with a question for you. I don't know if you mind taking it or not.
If it's on the topic that I'm talking about.
Okay,
sure.
I made sure to clarify that beforehand because it is Jimmy. So I'll bring him up. And Jimmy, good morning. You're on with Tina Traster. You got a question for her?
Yeah, good morning, Tina. How are you doing? I hope you have a good day. Thanks again for the great work you're doing. So all this warehousing that is popping up or will be popping up, do you have information what type of a merchandise or what will be used for, other than that there will be distribution center? Sometimes it can make a huge difference, like if they're using it for some things like chemicals, it's one thing. If you're using it to store, I don't know, some kind of
I think
a benign material, it's a whole different story.
Right. So let me answer the let me say that from what we know so far, it seems like the distribution centers are functioning as places for Amazon and UPS. They're centralized depots to deliver products to consumers and maybe products to the retail environment. I don't think that we're talking about that sort of a hazard. I think the issue with these warehouses clearly is the impact to air and traffic and noise and quality of life. But I don't think that we have to worry about the transportation of hazardous materials.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jimmy. And that was Jimmy with that question. That's a valid concern as to what will be in the buildings, but I imagined it would be something for UPS or Amazon or things like that. Which I suppose, I guess you could confer as to whether or not that would be beneficial in terms of the job market right now. But with the federal government's incentive right now for a lot of businesses to cut jobs in order to straighten out the market right now, I mean, would we be seeing a lot of immediate moves on warehouses right after construction with Amazon and UPS and things like that because of that incentive? Could that impact the fact of whether or not these warehouses are inhabited sooner rather than later?
What we would be looking at is we could probably safely say that in the short term, good news for the unions and construction jobs. In the middle term, I think that warehouses do not typically hire a lot of people. So you're not bringing in a lot of jobs from that point of view. And then in the longer phase, that what one has to think about is, do we continue to be an economy that is completely dependent on the distribution of goods, by way of distribution and centers and warehouse centers? In other words, the danger of glut and overbuilding. Developers, obviously, they have sophisticated algorithms and they figure out what's needed, but we often see booms and busts, right? We will see a glut of let's say, retail banks, for example, that many have closed and have had to repurpose themselves. We see that with a glut of sometimes of office space. So it's, no one has a crystal ball, and yes, there are projections, sophisticated projections, but in the long run, what we really don't want are big, empty, hulking warehouse buildings that become very hard to convert into largely anything else. So, I'm not, it's hard to prognosticate that sort of 5-10 years out, but that is the danger of these trends that get jumped on. I mean, we might be able to reasonably say, well, the county is short of housing, senior millennial housing, and that there's a good chance that populations will always rise. But in terms of this scale of warehousing in the county, it ties in directly to whether we remain an economy that keeps cycling goods from from corporations through distribution centers and delivery, and those that we keep these trucks on the road. If this is the way the economy goes, then I guess the need for warehousing remains. But if we pivot, and one last example would be, look at the strains that have gone on, with the mall and strip centers. We went on for decades with the vitality of malls, and then they became strained and less important, and have had to reinvent and look to entertainment and other uses. So it's that's why planning is so important. That's why counties and towns need to really think about their planning, not as something for the next year and what ratables it brings in, and it's a longer term game is the thing. Just as looking back on the environmental damage and the potential for remediation, it's what we do matters.
Mm-hmm. And you were referencing the housing market as well for seniors and millennials. I know over the past weekend, Naomi Stryker of Q Home Sales held an open house for actually a new senior housing complex, or over 55, the Summit 29 in New Hempstead, which apparently, from what she said earlier today, went very well. But could we see, is this just one thing, its own thing, or could we see some more complexes like this for not only seniors but also millennials to expand the housing market here in Rockland County, or do you think that's not?
Well, the greatest opportunity right now is the proposal on the table up in Letchworth, a village on the Stony Point side. It's the development that mixes senior, 55 plus senior living and millennial housing all in one as a multi-generational project. That is going to be for the voters to decide, but that's, that really is, and that has an environmental tie, because that project proposes at the developer's expense to take down 8 asbestos and lead-laden buildings for more than $8 million, as I just said, at the developer's expense. Mm-hmm. So yeah, these are the sort of projects that all these issues are being thought of together. What is the need? What is the opportunity? Where are the big parcels? Where's the development opportunity? What is the economic climate? Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on right now.
And election day's coming, so we will certainly see where the fate of the, at least the Stony Point side of the Letchworth project or purchase proposal ends up. So certainly that'll be something we'll be following. And we do thank you, Tina Traster from the Rockland County Business Journal, for joining us this week. We hope you have a great week. Stay as safe and as dry as possible, because there's a lot of rain, it's looking like, for at least the beginning half of this week. But like I said, stay safe and stay dry, and we will catch you next week. Have a good one.